In 1970, very few married women worked because their husbands made enough money to support them. Now, almost all married women work by necessity, not by choice. It's not that they're liberated. They were liberated before when they could choose not to work. Now they kind of are forced to work because their husbands can't support them the way they could in 1970. And so the fact that you now need two people to support a family as opposed to one, that represents a significant decline in standard of living. I also think people have smaller families today than they did back then, not by choice, but by necessity. They can't afford to support kids the way they could back then. Also back in 1970, the average American was much better prepared for retirement. They had a lot more retirement savings. Today, people have no savings. In fact, they're loaded up with debt. A lot more people own their home free and clear, didn't have a mortgage. Most people didn't have a car loan. They had a car by 1970, but they didn't really have a loan. Now people got mortgages on their cars. So we have a much weaker economy. We've been able to maintain the trappings of wealth by going into debt, by sending our women into the workforce. So a lot of these things have happened because had the women not gone to the work, we probably would have had a crisis a long time ago, right? If the women tried to stay home, the whole thing would have imploded. Or if we weren't able to borrow all this money and keep going deeper into debt. But one of the reasons that this was even happened was because of countries like China that were willing to make all the stuff that we didn't and trade it for all the money that we printed. It was the dollar's reserve currency status that enabled this, because if we couldn't run these trade deficits, we would have had an economic collapse decades ago.
Right.
So a lot of things that people didn't necessarily consider in 1970 because they didn't have a crystal ball. They didn't know that the women would go to work. They didn't know that all these new ways of borrowing money would be invented so that we can keep on kicking the can down the road. They probably didn't think of China was going to end up being our biggest supplier and our biggest lender. We'd be able to borrow all this money, or even Japan. Japan was nothing in 1970. And so a lot of things happened that enabled us to delay the day of reckoning. But now people think that day is never going to come because, it's eluded us for so long. But clearly there are so many signs, right, that we're close. I seriously doubt another 50 years is going to go by and people are going to be like, Peter Schiff was saying that 50 years ago. And look, everything is, we have $100 trillion debt. What's the problem? I don't think we're going to get, to that point. Or if it went on another 50 years, it wouldn't be 100 trillion. It'd be, what's after a trillion? A quadrillion, whatever. It would be some huge number.
Right.
But it's obviously not going to get there. Something is going to happen in this decade,
Right.
And probably in the earlier part, not the end. You could become a big winner through inflation because inflation is a massive transfer of wealth from creditors to debtors, especially when the inflation is not accurately reflected in the interest rate that you're borrowing. Because obviously, if the lenders understand how much inflation there's going to be, they're going to build that into the interest rate and you're going to pay a higher premium. But clearly, inflation premiums are not in the interest rates. Now, a lot of that has to do with government intervention. Government has mispriced credit. Because of government intervention, borrowing money is much cheaper than where it would be if there was a free market. So whenever a government makes something artificially cheap, well, you're going to get more of it, right? So you want to take on more debt because you're not paying a real market price for that debt.
Yeah.
But, if you just borrow a bunch of money and then just take a vacation and, buy some clothes and some consumer electronics, you're not going to have anything to show for the borrowed money. But if you use it to accumulate real assets, especially income producing assets, then it's a home run for you as far as your net worth is going to be. So I like to buy income producing assets in countries that I think have much sounder economic fundamentals, which is why I'm not buying in the U.S. I'm buying stocks outside the U.S. I'm also trying to buy companies that have a lot of resources that have real value, and not just natural resources, but man-made, plant equipment. Companies that generate earnings today, not that have pie in the sky estimates. So, well, maybe we'll make money in the future, but right now we're losing a ton of money.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information, and it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.